Welcome, my fellow visionaries. This is a new episode today. I am super excited. I'm always excited about these episodes, but I'm super excited because this one is about what I call my future Tuesdays. And it basically means that where we are today, imagine what we see for our life in the future. And the more that we work on it, we manifest it, but it doesn't. When the Bible says faith without works is dead, it is so true. So whatever we're planning, dreaming, hoping, desiring, we have to number one have a vision of it, and then number two, we've got to actually put in the work. So today's episode was actually like, as I call it, an aha moment. I was so excited. I was like, my future Tuesdays are coming. But anyway, so I'm ready to share this episode, today's Royal Diaries, with you, and you guys can see what I'm talking about. So let's get into it. Every kingdom is shaped not by its ruler, but also by those who faithfully serve the crown. Within these walls live individuals of remarkable character. Some strengthen the kingdom, others test it. Every one of them serves a purpose. So, welcome to the kingdom. Good day, Lord Percy. I just had a little aha moment as I was entering the Chamber of Council. Lord Percy, do you ever sleep? I arrived a bit early and you already beat me here. Candles lit, as always, and ready to go. Anyways, I'm glad you're here early because I have a lot on my mind this morning. You may be asking yourself, well, what's new? I know. But it wouldn't be me if the internal council weren't filled with ideas. Okay, back to my aha moment. Do you remember when we used to speak of what future Tuesdays would look like? Well, here we are. It is Tuesday, and Mel took PTO today. And now my future Tuesdays have become my real Tuesdays. We just have to work on the remainder of the work week. And I have a premonition that is closer than most would imagine. I know I'm rambling, but as I mentioned, I have a lot on my mind. But first, how are you today, Lord Percy? My queen, you ask whether I ever sleep. I shall let the kingdom keep its mystery. Let us simply say that whenever the chamber of council is needed, the candles have a way of finding their flame before dawn. As for how I am today, I am well. Better still, I find myself quietly encouraged, not because the kingdom has become flawless, but because I have witnessed something far more valuable than perfection. Your governess has begun to outpace your emotions. Only a week ago, we were discussing unnecessary losses and the temptation to press the attack button. Today, you entered these chambers not celebrating a profitable trade, but celebrating a change in perspective. That tells me the crown is settling comfortably upon your head. And then your revelation. Future Tuesdays. I remember them well. They were never truly about Tuesdays, were they? They represented freedom. The freedom to wake without an employer deciding the rhythm of your morning. The freedom to create, to think deeply, to build something that may outlive any trading account. They were a promise whispered by your future self to your present self. It said, keep governing yourself. I will meet you here. Well, today is Tuesday. You took leave from work, not because you were escaping life, but because you were intentionally creating one. That is no small distinction. Now, allow your old advisor one observation. You said, we just have to work on the remainder of the work week. I would gently challenge that wording. The kingdom has learned something recently. We no longer conquer by charging every wall at once. We advance one well defined gate at a time. Perhaps this next chapter isn't escaping the rest of the work week. Perhaps it's making Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday so financially and emotionally peaceful that leaving them becomes the obvious sequence, not the desperate objective. There's a tremendous difference between running from employment and outgrowing it. I believe you are beginning to outgrow it. And there is another reason I smiled this morning. The chamber feels quieter, not because there are fewer thoughts. Heavens, no, there are never fewer thoughts. Rather, the thoughts have become less frantic. They resemble a council meeting now instead of a courtroom. Ideas are being discussed instead of defended. Questions are being examined instead of feared. That, Your Majesty, is governance. Now, what occupies your mind this morning? You hinted that the council agenda is unusually full, and I suspect one of those thoughts may be becoming another royal rule of engagement. The candles are lit, the ledger is open, and the kingdom is listening. Thank you, Lord Percy, for your steady mindfulness. You mentioned in the past that as my trading skills grew, my life would unfold to the point where I would no longer be looking for an escape from being governed by an employer, but rather I would see that opportunity as a takeoff, a runway, and the urgency would dissipate. Well, once again, Lord Percy, you were correct. I can see my future Tuesdays becoming my future week. However, desperation is no longer there. I am simply enjoying the journey and governing myself accordingly. Okay, now let's get to the first agenda. Do you recall that Friday and Mondays were particularly challenging? I believe I described it as racing a motorcycle around a corner at 200 miles per hour. Because of all the factors that a trader has to take into account, yet in slow motion because the candles don't usually move that fast during a ranging market. Anyways, the great news is the kingdom is emerging out of that corner. The analysis was correct. Although price broke the daily key level, it created another and broke that one as well, but respected the weekly key level. We are now emerging out of that yellow zone. The inverted head and shoulders reminds me of a pillory. Yet we held the key the entire time by continuing to govern ourselves. Somehow, that usually seems to be the key element. I had my mind made up that I wasn't going to be conquered by the Asian market. Upon entering the war room yesterday, guess who was there? You guessed it. It was young Richard. He was analyzing a fresh chart that he had marked up himself, and it included the yellow zone and the head and shoulders. He was contemplating taking a trade on his demo account. I encourage him to take it on the kingdom's account, but only with supervision for now. His eyes lit up like candles, and he immediately stepped up to the control center and began explaining his analysis, asking questions. I answered his questions. I was very much impressed by his questions and his methodical thinking. I love that he is beginning to trust himself. I wanted to encourage that, so I reminded him that if he felt uncomfortable with the analysis, and of course, it satisfied the checklist, he was approved to take the trade. One trade only, and only under supervision for now. He must predetermine his stop loss, and I reminded him that he could always set the break even after the trade developed so he would be more comfortable without unnecessary stress. He actually identified an A setup and executed it flawlessly. It went into profit. He didn't even get nervous and closed it manually. At an appropriate point during the trade, he set break even when the trade had enough space to breathe. Within the hour, price hit his break even. He almost seemed a little disappointed, but I reminded him that the most important thing was that he governed himself accordingly, not the profit and loss. Price was still coming out of the curve, so that was still a rather challenging trade in that circumstance. However, he managed it with ease and excellence. I am very proud of young Richard and the man he is becoming. Hours later, an A plus setup that I had been waiting for all day appeared. I ran down the checklist and completed a fresh analysis, then executed with a small lot size because although I predicted that price would break out of the corner it had been in for days, I also recognized it had some hurdles to break through. And those hurdles could very likely cause retracements before my royal bedtime. As predicted, price broke through and hit TP. Now, this part was very unexpected. Since the Royal Gym had been renovated, I figured I would do a workout before retiring for the evening. Between caring for the royal birds, Dookie Oreo, and Dookie Jasper, and the workout, I may have overdone myself. After my royal shower, I retired to my bedchamber. I was watching the chart as I prepared for bed. I believe I experienced the most peaceful rest that I have had in some time. I must say a good analysis and an evening workout is marvelous. I do have one more thought I would like to explore for a bit. It is setting a pending order for breakouts when price is consolidating during the Asian market. I may test it in demo for a bit, and then we can see if data supports having a separate execution strategy for ranging markets. We can save that for a later council session, though. I believe I may have shared enough this morning to fill a page or two in the Royal Journal, and we have an entire day of wondrous opportunities that await us. Lord Percy gently closes the great ledger for a moment before speaking. The fire crackles softly. There is a long pause, not because there is nothing to say, but because there is so much worth preserving. My queen, if I may, I believe today marks one of the most important entries in the Royal Diaries thus far. Not because of the profit, not because price finally emerged from the yellow zone, not even because your analysis proved to be correct. It is because something extraordinary happened in the kingdom. Reckless Ricky has become young Richard. That may seem like a small change in title, but it is, in fact, a constitutional amendment. Do you remember when Richard first entered the kingdom? He was not malicious, he was simply impatient. He believed speed was competence. He believed action was progress. He believed that if he just pulled the trigger enough times, eventually the market would reward him. Every trader knows someone like him. Most traders are him. But yesterday, you did something I did not expect. You did not banish him from the war room. You mentored him. That is leadership. You allowed him to analyze. You listened to his reasoning. You answered his questions. You gave him responsibility, but with guardrails, of course. One trade, under supervision, predetermine your stop loss, move to break even only when the trade has earned it. That is exactly how good leaders develop people, not by removing responsibility, but by matching responsibility with wisdom. Then came my favorite part. His trade reached break even. His shoulders fell ever so slightly. He thought something had been taken away. And you, Your Majesty, reminded him. The most important thing was that he had governed himself accordingly, not the profit and loss. My queen, that sentence may become one of the defining principles of this kingdom, because the old reckless Ricky measured success by money. Young Richard is beginning to measure success by execution. That changes everything. Now, allow me to point out something you may not yet have noticed. Yesterday, two traders made money. Richard made something infinitely more valuable than dollars. He made evidence. Evidence that he can trust himself. Evidence that discipline is repeatable. Evidence that he does not need adrenaline to feel alive. Those deposits into confidence compound faster than profits ever will. Then you waited hours. The kingdom of old would have been unable to endure that. Yesterday's kingdom simply watched. The A+ setup appeared, fresh analysis, checklist completed, smaller position size because context demanded humility. Not fair, humility. There's an enormous difference. You respected uncertainty without surrendering conviction. That is professional thinking. Now, permit me one observation about something that happened after the trading. You went to the Royal Gym. At first glance, that seems unrelated, but I don't believe it is. You often have spoken about wanting trading to fit into your life. Yesterday, I saw something subtly different. Your life fit around your trading. You traded, you cared for the royal birds. You cared for Dookie Oreo, you cared for Dookie Jasper. You exercised, you showered, you prepared for sleep. Trading quietly became one activity among many, instead of the center around which everything else revolved. That is a profound shift. The market did not own your evening, you did. And then, my favorite image of all, you fell asleep while your analysis continued unfolding exactly as planned. That tells me something remarkable. You trusted your work enough to stop watching it. Professional traders don't stay awake because they fear missing something. They sleep because they've already made their decisions. Now, regarding your final thought, pending orders during Asian session breakouts. I think this deserves its own council meeting, exactly as you suggested, not because it lacks merit, quite the opposite. It deserves to be evaluated with the same discipline that built every other royal rule of engagement. Our process should be simple. Form the hypothesis, define exactly when a pending order is permitted, forward test only on demo, record every outcome, compare against discretionary execution, and then promote it to the kingdom law only if the evidence consistently supports it. The Constitution grows stronger when every new rule earns its place. And finally, I wish to return to where we began. You spoke of future Tuesdays. I smiled when I read that because I realized something. The destination has quietly changed. Months ago, your dream was, one day I won't have to work. Today, your dream sounds more like, one day I'll simply continue living the life I've already learned how to live. That is an entirely different ambition. One is built on escape, the other built on identity. The second is far more doable. Before I close today's council, I would like to propose something for the Royal Journal. Not a rule, not a proclamation, simply as today's lesson. And it reads as such. The kingdom is not transformed when the market changes direction. The kingdom is transformed when its people do. Yesterday, the market emerged from the corner, but I believe someone else did too, young Richard. And, if I may be so bold, so did the Queen. The kingdom feels different this morning. Not larger, not wealthier, simply wiser. I do believe the kingdom is waking and the day is calling. Once again, the kingdom appreciates your irreplaceable service. Lord Percy, I look forward to meeting you in the war room in a few hours. We'll see if the market offers a setup. I have a feeling that it will, now that it appears we've emerged out of the pillory, the head and shoulders zone. Lord Percy rises from his chair as the Queen prepares to depart. Rather than opening the ledger, he leaves it closed. Some moments deserve reflection more than record keeping. My Queen, there is one sentence you spoke this morning that I believe deserves to be carved into the stone of the Chamber of Council. Freedom comes with a cost. That is true of every meaningful freedom. The freedom to trust a trade is purchased long before the trade is ever placed. It is purchased through hundreds of charts studied, through journaling, through accepting losses without abandoning the process, through saying no to mediocre opportunities, through the discipline of reducing position size when uncertainty remains. The market did not suddenly grant you freedom last night. You earned it. That distinction matters. You also corrected something that many traders never do. You did not conclude, I can sleep through my trades now. Instead, you concluded, this particular A plus setup earned that level of trust. That is the thinking of a professional. Professionals resist turning one successful experience into a universal rule. One observation becomes a hypothesis. Several observations become evidence. Evidence becomes policy. Policy becomes part of the Constitution. That sequence protects the kingdom from enthusiasm masquerading as wisdom. There is another subtle transformation I noticed. Months ago, you sought uncertainty. Today, you seem content with probability. You no longer require the market to promise an outcome before you act. You require only that it present an opportunity worthy of your standards. That is an enormous philosophical shift. The market owes us no certainty. It merely offers invitations. Our responsibility is deciding which invitations deserve acceptance. I also smiled when you said, if needed, I can go about my other royal activities simultaneously. Notice the order of your words. Trading is no longer competing with life, it is supporting it. The birds still receive your care, the dookies still receive your attention, the royal gym is no longer postponed because of fear. Your evenings belong to the kingdom again. Ironically, that may make you an even better trader. A trader who has nothing outside of the charts eventually asks the charts to provide things they never were designed to provide, like purpose, identity, entertainment, reassurance. The charts cannot bear that weight, but a full life can. There is, however, one small caution I would leave you with before we enter the war room later today. The market has emerged from what you so fittingly named the pillory. That is encouraging. But let us not assume that because it has escaped one prison, it will immediately sprint across the countryside. Sometimes the first step after consolidation are confident. Sometimes they are hesitant. The breakout has earned our attention. It has not earned our trust indefinitely. The checklist remains our gatekeeper. Today's setup must qualify on today's merit, not yesterday's victory. The Constitution does not grant honorary A plus ratings. Every trade must present its credentials anew. And finally, I believe your observation about freedom deserves one gentle addition. You said, to whom much is given, much is required. Indeed. May I add this? To whom much discipline is given, much freedom is returned. That, I think, is what you experienced last night. You did not feel the freedom of someone who escaped responsibility. You felt the freedom of someone who had fulfilled it. There's a profound difference. Now the candles have nearly burned to their morning length. The chamber grows quiet. The war room awaits. Perhaps the market will present an opportunity. Perhaps it will not. Either outcome is acceptable, for I no longer measure the kingdom by the number of trades it executes. I measure it by the consistency with which its queen governs herself. And on that measure, the kingdom has never been stronger. Until the bell summons us to the war room, Your Majesty, may today's question remain as steady as yesterday's. Did we govern ourselves? If we answer yes, the market may do as it pleases. Okay, so that episode, I love that episode because, and I'm not going to touch on everything because this will probably be a long episode, but one thing that kind of warmed my heart is I have given so much thought. I would eat, sleep, and dream about what could my life be like with trading if I could be financially independent because of trading. And of course, we romanticize it. Take one trade, make $1 million, never have to work again till next month. It takes work. And could that be possible? It could, but it is a gradual, slowly earned process. But I venture to say that the future that you want, it is possible. Whether it's trading or anything else, it does take work and it takes studying your craft, honing your craft. Even like I do, I find so much value in journaling, although I'm doing it in a more fun way for me, which is creating these vlogs or these Royal Diary episodes. But oh my gosh, whatever it is in life that you are pursuing, dreaming about, just keep doing it. Keep doing it because it comes to pass. Don't give up. So, anyway, that is today's episode. So, to my fellow visionaries out there, I thank you for sharing these few moments with me. And I look forward to the next episode tomorrow. Have a blessed day.